All right. Oh, shoot. All right, so summary of the Freedom Writer's Diary book. Erin Gruhl was just an ordinary English teacher when one day she not only discovered that there was a hateful drawing of one of her students, but she also discovered that they did not know what the Holocaust was. So after that, she made it her mission to teach tolerance and ensured that her students were well represented in her classroom. Inspired by the Freedom Riders' fight for justice and equality, the Freedom Riders were born through the countless entries of discrimination, trauma, and violence from Mrs. G's students. These diaries inspired and continue to inspire the nation to fight for inclusion both in the classroom and in society. If it weren't for Miss Gruhl's creativity, hope for her students, and effort in classroom activities, her previously labeled at-risk students never would have gone to college, made honors, or done amazing things as adults. The Freedom Writer's Diary by Erin Gruhl and 150 of her students is more than teaching about inclusion. It's about how if you can change the classroom, you may end up changing the world.
So some of the important observations and themes and ideas that we got from this book was that it only takes one person to make an influence. And this theme mainly comes from like the teacher herself. So Erin Gruhl, so she stepped out of her comfort zone and took kind of a chance at teaching these at-risk students. And she didn't really know what to expect. All the teachers that were telling her, oh, it's not fun. Students aren't smart. They don't care about their class. But she saw a different side of them. She didn't see them as rejects, as what other teachers thought they were, and she didn't give up on them. So she really did make an impact on all of these students. The second one that she kind of brought into their classroom is the power of empowerment, writing, and then tolerance. Instead of having students go to violence, as what she did find out with a lot of her students, she encouraged them to pick up a pen and pencil instead, and to write out your feelings instead of to express them and hate on other people. So she really empowered them to do that, and then she really encouraged people to get to know the rest of the class and your classmates. The third observation we made was that if you want to make a change, it starts with you. So this we saw specifically with a student in her class. If you wanted to change the world, it has to kind of start with you, because students start to realize that if they don't make a change, it'll just be one big cycle from their life to their kids' life. And one specific example that we saw in the book was with a court case, and how one student had to testify in a court against one of his own family members and gang members. And what was going on is that he saw one of his own family members shoot another guy, but he had to go up to the trial and lie about it. But as he was sitting there listening to the trial, he saw the wife and a little child of this man who was innocent, and he could either send this innocent man to jail for the rest of his life, and then these people who would have to go on with their life without their father and husband and dad, or he could go against his own family. So at the end of the day, he did decide to do the right thing, and he had to turn in his own family. So he just learned that although it was really hard, but he wanted to make a difference in the world. The fourth observation we saw was don't judge people by their appearance. So there was preconceived notions at the start of the school year with students judging other students, and then the students also judging the teacher as well. They saw Erin Gruhl just as more of a Beverly Hills spoiled teacher who wore pearls and who wouldn't know anything and couldn't relate anything to their own environment that these students were in, which a lot were in gangs and violence and drugs and abusive relationships and stuff like that. So they didn't realize that when they met her that she would be the one to empower them and who would change their lives. Kind of going with that, it was labels don't determine who you are. So they, a lot of the students came into the classroom with stereotypes, being they're wealthy or not wealthy. Their race was a big one, their intelligence and economic, social class and stuff. And so what that did was they encourage you that just because you maybe have that label walking into the classroom, that doesn't mean that you kind of follow those stereotypes that other people have given you. So it's kind of stepping out of your comfort zone and doing what you think is right. The other one is that everyone has a story. You should listen to it. So just because someone sitting next to you in class looks different or does different things at home than you do, that doesn't mean that you guys can't relate to each other. Throughout the book, we did realize that all these kids kind of had a different story, but they could connect it in their own way. And that's how these students became more than just classmates, and they became a family. And the last one was like not to sacrifice your personal beliefs and identity. One of the girls mentioned in this book how she wanted to join a sorority because she wanted to be popular. She wanted to fit in with the other girls at school. And so she did join, but then at this point in time in history, hazing was like a big issue, and how she did have to like sacrifice who she was just to fit in with the cool kids. And now like later reflecting back in life, she realized that if you have to give up who you know, your own identity and your beliefs, it's not worth it just to fit in with the other people. So some of our favorite lines that we all picked one of our favorite lines. And so the one I picked was, I guess it just goes to show that if your passion is deep enough, you can do anything. And I picked this just because I feel like it's really motivational. You can really honestly set whatever you set your mind to, you can do it. And I feel like sometimes like that does get forgotten, and we think that sometimes our dreams and challenges are too big. But this book just reminds us that if you really want something, you can achieve it.
And then the one that I shared was, I realized if you can change a classroom, you can change community. And if you change enough communities, you can change the world. And that just stuck out to me because as a future educator, I really want to make an impact on the kids that walk into my classroom and just better their lives. And if they don't have a lot of resources that they need to succeed, like some of the freedom riders did at their homes and houses and lives, then I can give it to them and hopefully change their outlook.
The quote that
I would like the opportunity now to educate people on what is happening in my America, because until this undeclared war has ended, I'm not free. And that was actually in the book twice, and it just like stuck out to me throughout reading it. And just, you don't always know what's going on in your students' lives, and they may seem fine or that they might have their stuff together coming to their class, but they actually have a lot more going on, and you won't know that until you get to know your students.
And then the last quote there that I chose was, the only obstacles are the ones you allow. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. A truly self-reliant person finds its weakness and strengthens it. So kind of like in a classroom, you want all your students to be active and to be able to continue their education. You don't want to just leave somebody behind. You want to help them pick up their pieces, overcome what they think that they can do versus what they think that they can't do, and you want to get them to that more positive approach. So then, as Brianna mentioned earlier, diversity was a big part of this book. So it started off with Miss G just realizing that it wasn't a typical classroom, that these students were all very diversified from different backgrounds, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they got along at first. The novel started off with them always fighting with each other, making these remarks in their diaries that, what am I doing in this classroom, or so-and-so looked at me funny. And then as she incorporates these books, such as like Romeo and Juliet and Frank's Diary, they kind of realize that these differences make them unique and that they can connect to other people. Nobody is in this alone. So they kind of use that to build connections. And then as Sierra mentioned, they all became a family. They were excited to see each other the following year. And so at the end of the year, Miss G got them all to realize that this is an okay classroom to be yourself and to just leave all your stress away and just be one happy family.
So the book kind of just addresses a ton of social and emotional learning, and she's continuously encouraging the students to reflect on their personal lives and encourages them to keep this diary and to write in it every day and however often they feel. And she all of the text and readings she would find, it wasn't just like, oh, this is what is required through the standards. She would mostly find texts that she believed would relate to the students. So like Anne Frank, the story of, I don't know how to pronounce this name completely right, but Zalata, and just different things like that. And like she would purposely find texts that would help connect to the students and help them realize that they're not alone and that this stuff is repeated a lot through history. And then she also would bring speakers and provide different opportunities for the students to witness others involved in similar situations, and through that, how they can create change around them. And she actually brought in Zalata, and then she brought in, she was the friend of Anne Frank and was the woman who helped publish Anne Frank's diary, and that was Mep Gies, somehow you pronounce that. And she brought her in to talk to the students, and many of the students saw her as a hero for doing the different courageous acts that she did. And just the different connections with the students helped them realize that they can do these things through their own actions. And then Miss Gruel also helped publish all of their diaries together and brought in the Secretary of Education, Richard Riley. And a lot of the students were like, oh, he's some rich white guy, why does he care about us? And when he came in, the connections that he established with the students really helped develop further social emotional learning. And then they went on a variety of different trips, a ton of different trips. And one of them, they went to Washington, D.C. and got to stand on the stairs of the Lincoln Memorial, which was where Dr. Martin Luther King recited his I Have a Dream speech. And in the image, that's the Freedom Riders standing on the stairs. And they all got to shout, "Freedom Riders have a dream." And just those different experiences and speakers and everything really helped put an impact on the students and give them a deeper chance to learn material through others and like through their own experiences.
All right, so this book is very important for educators in a lot of ways, and the way Ms. Gruel taught should really serve as an inspiration for all aspiring educators. And she taught a lot of important values in this book that we can draw from. And one of the first main ones was that words have power. And with them, you can either build someone up or break someone down or change the world for the better or worse. Because even in the very beginning, and it was just kind of very evident throughout the book, when she discovered the hateful drawing, she just took that and really drove forward and made sure that intolerance wouldn't have a place in her classroom. And I think as teachers, we can really learn from that and just make sure that we're inclusive of all of our students, no matter what, and just really accounting for their needs. And then secondly, Gruel shows that labels do nothing but limit a student's potential. All of our students were really labeled at risk or stupid or not expected to graduate, and all of their lives, that was the only things they were really being told. And whether it was because of the color of their skin or where they lived, that was really all that they were hearing. And Ms. Gruel kind of took that as well and was like, no, you have more potential than that. And she was really one of the first people in their lives to say otherwise. And because of that, she really made a huge impact on their lives, and they came to do really great things. And then finally, through the Freedom Riders retellings, we learned that many students have a lot more going on in their lives than just school. And so when we step foot into our own classrooms one day, we will view a child with aggression. We can either view a child with aggression as a problem child, or we can step up and support the student and actively seek the bottom of their aggressive behavior and why it's actually happening. And so since many children also struggle with mental illness or drug or alcohol addiction, many children come from rough, gang-ridden neighborhoods, we can just kind of take that understanding and just try and apply it to our own classrooms. So yeah, overall, Ms. Gruel really gave us a lot that we can learn from and put into our own classrooms one day. And I think that's the end of the